Hello, my name is Clariza M. Talaga and I am a CEO of a registered company here in the Philippines. I am referring to Talaga Information and Business Consultancy with registered address at 1791 CM Recto Street, Pleasantville Subdivision, City of Lucena, Province of Quezon, Republic of the Philippines. Since no country has been spared in COVID-19 ongoing transmission, we all do our bit to observe the most effective safeguard while continuing with the business of life. I am a mother to 3 grown daughters. Their names and credentials are vital to the intent of this recorded communication, which has become the standard means in place of ordinary personal appearance. My eldest daughter is Jean Marie Cristel Garcia. She is now called by her nickname Mrs. J.M. Pobeda, her husband being Mr. Patrick Pobeda. She's 33 years old. Next is her sister, my middle child, Jacqueline Keisha Talaga Garcia. She's still single and she's 32 years old. The youngest will be Joanna May Garcia and she's now called Mrs. Joanna Dignom. She has 2 kids with her husband John Paul Dignom. The inherent uniqueness of our family and situation can best be described with brevity if I begin with an established and much admired and very practical custom and tradition. At a point of my adult life as a parent, it came to pass that my source of income and livelihood had become subject of judicial order. The details of this is also part of the documents that I had sent. My daughters had graduated in high school at that time. Their college education was about to begin, and there was a year actually that all 3 of them were in college. My daughters might not have finished college education within the 4 to 5 years that they did. That's the tradition that compelled so many of my compatriots to seek work abroad that we even have an acronym to refer to them, OFW, the Overseas Filipino Workers. For that tradition to become a tangible practice, which the body of law also refers to, a clear sense of responsibility should be the motivating factor for a family member. More than mere documents testifying to the connectivity, to the relationship, it's what in the heart that will really compel a family member to come to the aid of another who in their greatest need. We may have many relatives and family friends, but not all will have that sense of responsibility and obligation enough to compel them to make concrete or to demonstrate the relationship and what it calls for. The family members who had responded to my call for help came from the paternal family of my daughters. I had married Mr. Joaquin T. Garcia Jr. when I was 19 years old, and it is his family members who were able to send the tuition money of my eldest daughter, JM. She graduated BS Nursing. As for the rest of her expenses, At that year, I was the one who had to work and sign the promissory notes to tide her over from one semester to another, and it goes through for the rest of her sisters until all of them were able to graduate college. Given the difficulty in the legal cases that had restraining order over my livelihood. Yes, that too is in the documents that I was able to provide and send. I will be condemned by fellow Filipinos if they will say that it isn't so. That I am lying in saying how well entrenched is the practice among Filipino family members to come to the aid of a family in time of great need. And that this is in fact the custom and tradition for this purpose is being referred to by an article in the Civil Code of the Philippines, also known as Republic Act 386. I am not a lawyer, and my profession does not include having direct connection to the law profession. But if I may call the attention of the Embassy of Malaysia here in Metro Manila for the rest of the Philippines with regards a particular law that matters in my dealings with some well-respected nationals of your great country, I refer to the third article of the first chapter of this body of law, and I quote, Article 3, ignorance of the law excuses no one from compliance therewith. As a CEO of a company, a writer, and a music artist, it has become imperative to get to know the basic tenets of the guiding principles to become a legitimate stakeholder of the industry I am also part of. I am the Clarissa talaga who has been mistaken to be in relationship with the family, a well-respected family here in the Philippines, the Gatchalian family. It turns out I am not. And indeed, that would have been a very serious matter considering their political and social standing in and out of the business community here in the Philippines as well as outside. I am the Clarissa talaga who has been mistaken to be in a relationship with some other Filipinos, and that the complexity of such relationship affects my legal status and finances. This matter will become an official business matter at the Philippine Commission on Women, or PCW, and a matter of national security. So I am writing as the CEO with my personal information submitted along with their corroborating documents. I am writing as a sole proprietor, founder and CEO, and that I am not invoking the names of other, equally or more so, more reputable company and prominent names here in the Philippines. I am just writing as myself, and just on the basis of the merits of the documents under my name, I have submitted my application, and the details are in the following communication. Hello, this is Clarice, and for this episode, I want to introduce my kababayan to this man. Although he speaks English, from the videos that I've watched him, I know that he can speak Malaysian. So, in the same way that as a Filipino, I would speak my language, being a Malaysian national, Anthony would be speaking a
Malaysian language, and according to my research, it would be Bahasa. I thought it was Bahasa, but it's Bahasa. Being a Chinese descent, somehow he would also be speaking Chinese language, and so there are a lot of things that I would ask him in person one of these days. And he speaks French, and of course, he studied in Harvard together with the co-founder Kuei Ling Tan. And I got to notice them only after I had attended a summit in SMX, in SM. And then later on, in my research, because diba, in Philippine directory, it used to be, we have Philippine long distance telephone company. That's the very first and enduring telecommunication we have here. And all means we usually identify a person through first name, middle name, and family name. And this really got me so confused because in other Asian countries, I had asked myself whether the Tan, both of them are Tan, whether what was the relationship towards each other. Was it a couple relationship, a married couple, because they share the same family name, Anthony Tan and Kuei Ling Tan, and so were they brother and sister, or are they related to any of the Filipino Chinese that we have here in the Philippines? And so my questions, one after another, came after each time that I got my answer, until it reached a point wherein I was confident enough to write the proposition letter. And I know that the first letters I had sent to Mr. Brian Koo of Grab Philippines. And then later on, truthfully, I didn't get any answer. And I told myself, because I had already a passport then, and that my exposure really is more or less, international. The first batch of supporters that I got, the first batch was from abroad, and so I was very confident. I was more confident of redirecting and reprocessing my proposition letter to Grab Philippines, to Grab Holdings, to Grab International, the mother company of Grab Philippines. And it, one of my, call it whatever you may call it, but it was one of the highlights that I still treasure to this day, when my note came and Anthony Tan had actually received it in person. So it was a career high for me. Thank you so much. And now, friends, I just want you to listen to this. To these founders and be fascinated by what they are saying, just as I had been. And before this came into light, I didn't know their family background. I just know that I had to find a way to be able to talk to them in person.
Joining me today on Bloomberg Studio 1.0, Anthony Tan and Hui Ling Tan, co-founders of Grab. Let's start at the beginning. You met at Harvard Business School. How did you two find each other?
So they are not a married couple. They are not Mr. and Mrs. Tan. And they are not brother and sister, like coming from the same parents, Mr. and Mrs. Tan.
Interesting. The first year we were in business school, we were in different classes. So the only times we met were when we were looking for Asian food. It was actually only in the second year that we started to really get to know each other. Industry, my terrible experiences taking taxis in a very unsafe environment in Malaysia, that we realized that the smartphone mobile revolution that was happening could actually potentially unlock a problem that many had tried to solve before, but had not successfully done so.
This was a couple years after Uber had launched. How much was Uber sort of a blueprint?
It was very different. It was black cars. It was everyone can have its private driver. Ours was just, hey, how do we make sure that women like Ling have the best safe alternative out there and in a very affordable way?
So if you were to Google world's worst taxis 7 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the top hit for the first page or two would have been Kuala Lumpur, which is Malaysia's city capital. That's the environment we grew up in. Even worse, the moment I became an adult, I was working late at McKinsey. So there was no real alternative. I couldn't drive myself home because I would fall asleep at the car. It was late nights. My mom and I developed a manual GPS tracking system. So back then, we were during the Nokia good old phone days. No smartphones, no GPS tracking. And I would literally text her the car number plates, the name of the driver and the license of the car and taxi I got into. I would text her whenever I hit any of the major milestones of landmarks that we would pre-agree on, so that she would know if I was 15 minutes away, 7 minutes away, or just around the corner. Because every single night, she would sleep in front of our couch, something that looks like this, waiting for me.
So you launch. At what point do you realize this is going to be big?
We never thought that this would be, it's a miracle, I'll be upfront, that where we are. That's
your mom was your first VC, right?
Exactly. My mom and I, we put in everything we had, and I don't think we ever imagined it'll be the company it is today.
Yep.
Talk to me about those early days growing the company.
It was tough, really tough. We would set up a table, a plastic table, that probably cost $2 right by the drains of the monsoon drains beside gas stations, because they would come, taxis would come by gas stations. So we would say, hey, uncle, give us a shot, and then we'll give you like some nasi lemak, which is like a rice or like a breakfast rice or a little drink that costs 20 cents. And then if they didn't have a smartphone, we would, we flew to a few OEMs and we talked to some OEMs to subsidize some phones for us in the beginning, because we just couldn't afford smartphones. And then whether it was in Singapore or Jakarta or wherever, literally window by window or knocking window by window going, uncle, while they're lining up, whether it's in airport or by a gas station, and convincing them one by one.
Hi, good morning. Today is the 10th of February 2021, and I want to read a portion, a page on the website of Philippine Commission on Women. So from the very title of this organization, one would know that it's Philippine-based. It's about Filipino women, diba? And I am a mother, obviously. I have been so proud and posting a lot of pictures of my daughters. So, being a mother of three daughters, three women, obviously it's for our benefit and it's our lookout to get in touch with organizations like this. And so, as I submit our credentials at PCW, I would not be doing so on my own, but because I am a mother of three women, and that one of them is also a mother of one daughter so far, that's Jewel. So, the mandate of this office has to do with our existence and our way of life. RA 7877, the Anti Sexual Harassment Act, RA 9208, the Expanded Anti Trafficking in Persons Act, RA 11210, availment of the 105-day expanded maternity leave, RA 9262, the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children. It's Republic Act 7877. What is sexual harassment? Under RA 7877, work, education, or training related sexual harassment is committed by an employer, employee, manager, supervisor, agent of the employer, teacher, instructor, professor, coach, trainer, or any person who, having authority, influence, or moral ascendancy over another in a work or training or education environment, demands, requests, or otherwise requires any sexual favor from the other, regardless of whether the demand, request, or requirement for submission is accepted or not by the object of said act. How is work related sexual harassment committed?